You may know her as Nitrous or Power Woman.
Nope.
She was also called Jewel. She had pink hair.
Sounds unfamiliar.
Well, her human name is Jessica Jones.
Oh, I know Jessica Jones.
Well, it really doesn't sound like you do, and she's got a Netflix series coming out, so it's a good thing that you are here for this geek history lesson on Jessica Jones that is now in session. Hello and welcome to Geek History Lesson. I'm Ashley Victoria Robinson.
And I'm Jason Power Woman Inman. Welcome to your Mind University, which is what we call this podcast, because this podcast is a school for learning, and that's learning about characters of pop culture, because each week we give you one character of pop culture, we give you their entire history, little nuggets of knowledge, all kinds of interesting facts, and this week we are tied into a little thing called Netflix. Ashley, you've heard of this thing called Netflix, right?
I've heard that it streams stuff right to your home.
That's right, and they have an original series called Jessica Jones that's coming out this week. So we thought it was very appropriate to have a Jessica Jones geek history lesson.
Yes, we did.
Tell you everything about her. So we're going to jump into the first section of our podcast called The 10-Cent Origin. Ashley, as you tell us all the details in the 10-Cent Origin, what is the 10-Cent Origin section of our podcast?
Well, the 10-Cent Origin is the part of the podcast where we tell you all the basic caveats, creators, and abilities of whatever character we happen to be talking about.
In case you ever need to know this information at a geeky cocktail party.
At a Jessica Jones cocktail party.
Yeah, they might happen.
They could happen.
They might happen.
One never knows.
Okay, so Ashley, what is the 10-Cent Origin of Jessica Jones?
The 10-Cent Origin of Jessica Jones is that her name is Jessica Campbell Jones Cage. We will address all of those names later in the lesson.
That's a name. Okay.
Yeah, she first appears in Alias #1 that came out in 2001. She is one of the youngest characters that we have done to date.
Yeah.
She was created by Brian Michael Bendis and Michael Gaydos. Her team affiliations include The New Avengers, The Pulse Magazine, Alias Private Investigations, and The Daily Bugle, home to Peter Barker, a very important character in Jessica's life.
Okay.
And her notable partnerships include Luke Cage and Carol Danvers. Her aliases, include Jewel, Nitrous, and Power Woman.
Nitrous. Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
We're really only going to talk about Jewel.
Oh, okay.
And her abilities include superhuman strength, endurance, flight, and psionic projection.
Psionic projection.
She can shoot various colored energy from her hands.
Ooh, that may explain the Jewel name.
Yeah. And that is your 10-Cent Origin on Jessica Jones.
Next, we move into the next section of this podcast, and that is...
Meet Cute.
Yeah, it's where we tell you where we first encountered, met, or saw this character. Ashley.
Jason.
Where did you first encounter Jessica Jones?
Well, I read a little event called Civil War in trade paperback in 2009. I didn't know.
You remember the exact year you read Civil War?
I did because very specific things were happening in my life when I read Civil War. So that's why I'm like, I know it was 2009.
Okay.
I had no idea who Jessica Jones was. She was married to Luke Cage and they had a baby, and that was cool, and that was all I knew about Jessica Jones.
I first encountered Jessica Jones in issues of New Avengers, just like the Purple Man, because I loved the New Avengers, like the beginning, the first, I would say 40 issues of New Avengers, Brian Michael Bendis' New Avengers they're great. They're really good. They're a lot of fun, and there's a lot of shakeups. Like the team actually changes like 3 times, and you see Jessica Jones in there, and it's very exciting. And fun fact, I actually read Civil War in its original form, month to month, even though there were big gaps, buying it from a comic book store because I wanted to know about that event.
Well, aren't you special?
Back in 2006.
Yes.
Yeah, so there you go. Now we're going to move into History 101. This is the mean and the main meat of this lesson, where we're going to tell you all the details, and Professor Ashley is going to tell all you students to sit down and shut up, because you need to know all this stuff before you watch that Netflix series.
Yeah, so
Am I right?
Sit down and shut up.
That's right. Well, Jessica Jones is a street character.
Jessica Jones is a tough lady.
So we got to be street on this podcast now. With a Mind
I don't think I can live up to that.
The Mind University is taking a field trip.
To the alley behind the Mind University.
To the alley behind the Mind University. We're right next to the dumpster of the Mind University.
On Alias Way. It's adjacent to Crime Alley.
It's this weird nexus of all these like terrible murders that have happened on streets.
It's just full of all the first drafts of our lessons.
Well, like I hate to say this, like most colleges, the mean streets are right by the colleges. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
That's where the cheap housing is.
Yeah, you go by USC, and you don't want to leave USC. I'll tell you that. Okay,
for real.
All right. We're going to go back to the street of Jessica Jones.
Yeah, Alias Boulevard.
AKA New York City. Okay.
Yes.
So, Ashley, take us through the lesson. Jessica Jones.
She first appeared in Alias, like I mentioned mere moments ago, and Alias was originally supposed to star Jessica Drew, aka Spider-Woman, who you can go listen to a lesson on if you so desire.
Say what? We did a lesson on Jessica Drew?
Yeah, we did.
Holy cow, I bet that's on iTunes and Stitcher.
Yeah, it totally is.
Okay, cool.
It was supposed to star Jessica Drew because Brian Michael Bendis loves his classic Marvel characters.
He loves 70s Marvel characters.
He does.
Yeah.
But Marvel was all, we're going to make her a Skrull? You can't use her. And he was like, well, I'll just make a new girl and call her Jessica.
Okay, so explain the Skrull thing.
So during Secret Invasion, it was revealed that a bunch of Marvel characters were not actually Marvel characters.
Whoa.
They were alien doppelgangers.
They were alien... What?
Yeah. That's really all you need to know about it. Notably Jessica Drew.
Okay, and Jessica Drew, she was the Skrull queen.
Yes, so because there were already plans earmarked for her, Brian Michael Bendis couldn't have her for Alias, so he created Jessica Jones, the middle-aged woman we're going to talk about right now. I was going to say the young lady.
How old is she, would you say, in Alias?
In Alias, I'd say she's like 27.
Okay, I'm not skipping ahead of you. Am I?
No. Her age is never given.
Okay.
And I read all of Alias last week, so
cool.
It is never given there. But just, from the way she acts, from the amount of life experience she has, like I would say she's in her late 20s.
Okay.
So more about that. Brian Michael Bendis has commented about the fact that Jessica Jones had to be an original creation of his by stating, and I can't do an impression, so just go with it. Originally, Alias was going to star Jessica Drew, but it became something else entirely, which is good. Because if we had used Jessica Drew, it would have been off continuity and bad storytelling. I was at one time toying with doing Jessica Drew in Alias because she had the best hair of any superhero in comics. But this book is entirely different from what that idea was to be.
Okay, so because she has the best hair, that's the reason why he chose her.
Yeah, because maybe because he's bald. Bendis is a hair guy.
Hey, oh my God, you nailed it on the coffin. You nailed the coffin. That's it. The bald man, Brian Michael Bendis. Of course, he wants the best hair.
I look forward to his Medusa standalone series.
Okay. Oh my, that's probably next year.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
I want to back up in that, Mr. Bendis. You can call me. I know you're listening.
Oh, yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
He also went on to state in another interview.
I read his Jessica Drew series. It was actually pretty good.
It is good.
Yeah.
That he wants to incorporate Jessica Jones into the Ultimate Marvel Universe. And since he stated that in Ultimate Spider-Man number 106, Jessica Jones is a student at Peter Parker's high school.
Oh, wow.
She makes a very, very brief appearance, but she does exist in the Ultimate Universe.
I remember that. Mm-hmm. I do remember that. Oh, that's cool.
Which calls upon her existence in the 616 universe in kind of a nice way that we're going to talk about right now.
Okay, so we're going to stay in the 616
Yeah,
now.
we're not going into Ultimates.
The main continuity Marvel universe.
Yes.
Got it. Okay, great. So that's the only time we're going to touch the Ultimates.
Was what we just said.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah,
all right.
Because there's literally not enough to talk about.
We're back in the mean streets of the 616.
So her origin has remained exactly the same since she first appeared
in 2001.
Her origin actually isn't told until Alias number 22.
Interesting.
You just drop into Alias number 1 and you are very much in media res. You are left to figure out stuff as it comes to you. And then Alias 22 goes back and tells you everything I'm going to tell you right now.
Great. I'm excited.
So, Jessica Campbell grew up in New York City and attended Midtown High.
Wait a minute. Stop. Who's the Jessica Campbell?
She will later become Jessica Jones. Her birth name is Jessica Campbell.
Okay.
Just go with me, okay?
All right. I mean, seems like you jumped to a different character, but okay.
I know, but you just I'm really good at my job.
Okay.
Just go with it.
I'm trusting you. I mean, we're in the alley right now, so I'm
behind the Mind University.
My guard is up.
Yeah. So Jessica Campbell grew up in New York City like all great Marvel characters do. She attended Midtown High like all great Marvel characters do, the same high school as Peter Parker. And she went on the same field trip and witnessed Peter Parker getting bitten by the iconic radioactive spider. And she has a terrible, terrible crush on Peter Parker that she just can't get over.
Jessica.
She never gets over. Yeah, she loves Peter Parker.
Jessica. Well, I'm talking to you, Jessica Jones.
Oh, hey, Peter.
Or Jessica Campbell.
Jessica Campbell, yeah.
Well, I'm not Peter. I'm just like, omniscient narrative.
Omniscient
Raise your standards.
Well, she also has a crush on Johnny Storm, which I actually think is a lower standard than Peter Parker.
Oh, really?
Personally.
Because I think that's a right choice.
No.
Okay.
Johnny's a love him and leave him kind of dude.
All right, cool.
So
he also attended that school for a while, by the way.
Yeah. But he's like older now, and
Yes.
she's like 15 at this time. Jessica's unnamed father. Her parents are unnamed, and her brother is unnamed.
Okay,
but she has two parents and a younger brother.
So just brother and dad.
Yeah. So
Okay.
her father worked for Tony Stark at Stark Industries.
Oh, that's cool.
And as a thank you for being a good employee man, he received free tickets to Disney World in Florida. So
Hey, cool.
I know it sounds like it's coming out of left field, but just go with it.
All right, got it.
So while driving the family home from Disney World, the Campbells are all fighting and screaming at each other and hating each other, and their car got in an accident. It got hit and run off the road by a military convoy carrying radioactive chemicals, killing Jessica's parents and her little brother, and putting Jessica into a coma for several months, about 6 months, I believe.
Oh, okay. So this is interesting because this explains a joke from New Avengers.
Dun, dun, dun.
There's a joke. There's a joke way down the line. Sorry to put this lesson on pause, everybody, but Spider-Man makes a joke about Coma Girl.
Yeah. This is the first of many comas.
Okay. Yeah. He makes a joke about Coma Girl in his high school. And
that's Jessica, yeah.
Well, there's a scene in New Avengers where he's like, "Wait a minute, you're Coma Girl," and she's like, "I was Coma Girl."
That's so tasteless.
Yep.
And so funny. She does wake up at a certain point.
Okay.
Basically because Galactus is outside of her window causing havoc.
Oh, so like we're in Fantastic Four 50. Mm-hmm. Okay, nice.
And I guess the psionic energy, they never really explain it, but Galactus is outside and she wakes up. And fun fact, the nurse who discovers that Jessica is awake is called Nurse Chapel. She is name checked as Nurse Chapel.
Nice little Star Trek
the
reference.
nurse from TOS, and she's got little blonde hair, so that's
totally,
not an accident.
It's totally Nurse Chapel.
Yeah, I thought that was very sweet.
So it's a very much so the cosmic energies and this radioactive waste combine.
And they bring her back to her consciousness.
Okay, cool.
And I did state earlier that she has the power of flight. She never masters her power of flight, and this comes up repeatedly throughout stories that she's involved in. It's a big part of Alias. She's good at everything else except flying.
Okay.
And there's a lot of ideas about that she doesn't have good balance, that she's not confident. But she's good at she's good at punching, she's good at shooting things from her hand. She's not good at flying.
Got it.
She is eventually moved into an orphanage called the Moore House for Wayward Children, which I think is not setting a high bar for the people living in your orphanage.
The Moore House?
The Moore House for Wayward Children. I don't know who Moore is, but like wayward is not a great adjective that I would use for describing like orphans, you know, especially teenage orphans.
Sure.
She is later adopted by the Jones family, so legally taking on the name Jessica Jones.
I'm becoming the alliterative superhero like Marvel does.
Yes, and although it's not touched on much, she does call her stepfather Dad, so one would assume that she has a very healthy, familiar relationship with her adopted parents.
That's cool. All right.
Yeah, there's like 3 panels of a really nice scene between them, and then they're kind of never mentioned again.
Oh, all right.
She re-enrolls eventually at Midtown High School, like you do, and is mercilessly bullied by Flash Thompson, resident dick.
Probably calling her Coma Girl.
Probably calling her Coma Girl. And he basically ostracizes her following her long absence. Peter Parker notices that, she's not doing too well, and he's become Spider-Man by this point, so he's got the Spidey senses going on. He tries to comfort Jessica and say, like, hey, I know what it's like to lose your parents, but because she's a teenage girl, and I say this having been a teenage girl.
Okay, yes.
She does not let him finish. She takes it way out of control, and she basically thinks that he's pitying her, and one of Jessica's big things is she doesn't want to be pitied for anything that's happened to her.
She doesn't want to be coddled in any kind of way?
No, so she's like, you suck, and she runs away from him, and so there's like the seed there that they could have had a really healthy relationship moving through this trauma together.
But instead, they created the greatest supervillain superhero contest that we've ever seen, correct?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
But ironically, Jessica is later inspired by Spider-Man fighting Sandman to use her powers for good and to become a superhero.
Oh, cool.
So there's a nice little, it's not quite the bow on the package, but there's some nice gift wrapping on the story.
So there's an implication that Peter Parker and Jessica Jones maybe could have been really good boyfriend-girlfriend.
Yeah. But it is never to be, and we all know that Parker's going to wind up with MJ anyway. So
Old Mary Jane.
Old Mary Jane.
Okay.
So she takes on the superhero persona of Jewel.
Okay.
Jewel is basically your standard, like, I fly around, I'm strong, I shoot bolts from my hand kind of superhero. She's very generic. She wears a dumb costume. She's got pink hair.
Okay.
The pink hair is really the coolest thing about Jewel.
Okay.
So she takes on that persona.
Do her blast pink?
I think they change colors depending on who's coloring them.
Got it. Okay.
Because it's really not.
I didn't know if that was the
important.
choice. I didn't know if that was the choice for the hair. Sorry.
No, as far as I can tell, she just has pink hair because Michael Gaydos or whoever colored the book. I'm sorry, I don't have your name. Was just like pink hair is cool.
Got it.
Man, maybe Bendis wrote it in there.
Understood.
She pretty much flies under the radar, no pun intended, as far as superhero goes. She doesn't really do anything significant. She's an auxiliary member of the Avengers. Like, she's never a backup Avenger. She's never an Avenger, but
reserve Avenger.
Yeah, but she does team up with Carol Danvers, who's Ms. Marvel at this point, and she does have interactions. Like, Captain America knows who she is, Iron Man knows who she is, but it's not really going that well. So she's kind of a mediocre superhero until she encounters the Purple Man, who Jason taught us about last week.
We did that lesson last week.
Because she goes to a restaurant to resolve a disturbance where he's telling everyone, don't breathe. And then he has a bunch of them fight for sport. Jessica tells him to stop, and he turns around and says, take off your clothes. And she starts to do that, beginning a trend in their relationship. He then has her go outside and beat the crap out of the police who she called to the scene while he continues eating dinner. Jessica states that the Purple Man, she does, okay, so there's a scene later on where she tells the story of what the Purple Man did to her.
Of this day.
It's a long time coming. She states word for word that the Purple Man never raped her, which is kind of a misconception that people have about this storyline, is that it's very much about his sexual assault on her. Instead, he would have sex with other random women, force her to watch, telling her that he wished that this was her, and having her beg him to do these things to her, but he never touched her.
Interesting.
It's a very psychological torture that's going on.
Very much a power trip.
It is. And I think it's because the Purple Man is a spy, which means you're not allowed to be who you are. You're always working for these kind of shadowy organizations. And he's always drawn as a very kind of small, weenie guy.
He is.
So having got by on his intelligence, I think maybe this is his chance when he gets these pheromone abilities to very much exercise his power over other people.
Interesting. Okay.
Yes.
But making her say that stuff.
That's horrible.
That's pretty terrible.
It's almost worse. It's not.
I almost said when you think about it, it's not.
But the idea of it is, it's so horrifying.
Yes.
And Jessica, even though she was not in control of her actions at this time, she remembers everything. It is very clear in her memory.
Well, yeah, because you can't. It would be. I mean, here's the weird thing, and I think Mr. Bendis did this very purposefully.
Yes.
I don't think this was an accident. What he did to her was a living coma.
Yes.
And so she got to have another coma again, basically.
Yeah, she's coma girl.
Again.
Yeah, we're going to have another one later.
Except waking coma. Yeah.
Yeah, very much so.
Which would be worse than like the coma where you blink your eyes and boom, it's 6 months later.
Right. It's the coma where you're awake while they're doing surgery on you.
Yeah.
That was what I would equate it to. And during this time, the Purple Man stated that he was doing this to Jessica in recompense for every time any other male superhero, and he specifically named Spider-Man and Daredevil, who are characters that she's tied into.
And he is a Daredevil villain.
And it was originally introduced as a Daredevil villain, had beaten him. So for every time he was beaten by a hero, he's going to do this to her as recompense, as pittance for what they did to him. He would also send out Jewel in her costume with her hair done up and everything. He sent her out to kill Daredevil because he saw that Daredevil was praised in the newspaper and just couldn't stand it. And he forced her to attack any other superhero that she encountered along the way. Now, even though she was literally flying away from him, and the further you get from the Purple Man, the looser his grip is on you, because she had been with him for 8 months at this point.
Oh, he had seeped into her pores.
Yeah, so she was gradually waking up, but she couldn't quite control herself, and she couldn't stop what was going on. So she sees the Scarlet Witch from behind and mistakes her red costume for Daredevil. So she attacks the Vision, she attacks the Scarlet Witch, who is saved by the Vision, her husband at the time, and the Vision decides that he is going to kill her, and then Jessica is saved by Carol Danvers, flies them up into the sky away from the Vision. Although he does punch her in the face and detaches one of her retina, crushes her spinal column.
The Vision does?
Yes.
Wow.
Punches teeth out of her face and breaks her nose.
Wow.
Yes.
Vision, dude.
Yeah. And
relax, man.
Basically, the stress her brain was under breaking away from the Purple Man and being hit in the face by a robot, she fell into another coma.
Oh.
So she's in a coma for an indeterminate number of months, but it is stated that it is months.
Well, the lesson here, kid, is don't get hit in the face by a robot. Holy cow.
Even if he's voiced by Paul Bettany, it's just not, just don't.
It's not worth it.
Just don't.
It's not worth it. Stay away from the robots.
And the thing that eventually pulls her out of her coma is a mutant named Jean Grey.
Hey, I know that mutant.
Can you tell us really quickly who Jean Grey is?
Jean Grey is one of the first X-Men of all time. She was originally called Marvel Girl, but most people know her as the Phoenix.
Yes.
Red-haired, Famke Johnson played her in the movie.
And arguably one of the most powerful.
Easily, yes.
Yes. So she basically goes inside her coma delusions.
Yes, because Jean Grey is telepathic.
Yes, and she helps Jessica come out of them. And when she's talking to Jessica in there, she says, like, we know what the Purple Man did to you. And she's like, no, he would never do anything to me. He loves me. That is what her subconscious believed at this time. So subconscious is
Stockholm Syndrome.
Yeah. And then she's like, no, this is really bad. So when she wakes up from her coma, this is the first time she meets a character named Clay Quartermain. And Clay Quartermain is a Steranko SHIELD agent.
Yep.
And that's basically all you need to know about him, is that he meets her. They immediately have crushes on each other. They date for like a second off panel.
Oh.
But in the Alias series, which is where all this information comes from, Clay is kind of Jessica's oracle. She'll call S.H.I.E.L.D., she'll talk to him, he'll give her a breakdown, he'll give her some locations.
Oh, so as a PI, when we get there, like she's just like, yo, I need this license plate from the supervillain. And he's like, I guess.
Yeah, and he'll do it for her. And he's one of the only characters until toward the end of the series that she really opens up to. And it's really like, it's actually kind of nice because Jessica's a very hard character. And when she talks to Clay, she can be soft, which I think is that contrast is very, very important. So, like I said, she was under the Purple Man's control for 8 months. She's in a coma for like another 6 months. And while she was missing, neither her parents nor the Avengers were at all concerned that Jessica was missing. No one filed a report. Nobody looked for her. And when she learns that, it really, really messes with her.
I think it would mess with anybody.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
If you were gone for 6 months.
I mean, on top of everything else that happens.
Yeah. Like, so here's the thing. Okay. So 6 months go by. You're not here.
Yeah.
I don't file a police report. One,
none of the students file a police report.
None of the students file a police report. Two, here's the other thing. Why did I continue the lessons? And how weird was that podcast for 6 months?
How much more singing is there?
Oh, there's a lot of singing. Oh, my God. And I probably would have done a voice.
Oh, yeah?
To fill the space. But how did I just hear you in my head? But anyways, yeah.
I don't know. How much like Jean Grey are you?
I don't know. Here's the other thing. Like, this is very much like Jessica Jones again. It's again herself, like, because she like decides to rally against these people. She's now again putting herself in a self-imposed coma.
She's isolating herself.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But again, it's weird. It's weird that nobody else noticed. That's a hell of a
It's sad.
Thing. Yeah, it's really sad.
It's really, really sad. So obviously these events are the things that cause her to stop being a superhero. And during Alias, she's always like, I'm not a superhero. I'm not a superhero. Like, I'm not a superhero. It's a big deal for her that she's not a superhero. And she doesn't want to be. Even though she has all these abilities, she's not a superhero. But eventually, a girl needs money. So Jessica Jones opens up Alias Investigation.
Ooh, entrepreneur.
Obviously, this is the inspiration for the Netflix series because we've seen a lot of imagery from Alias Investigations.
Yes, and originally the show was going to be before this whole Netflix deal, they were going to make a Jessica Jones show and they were going to call it Alias. But then there was another Alias show on the air.
Yes.
And then the original title for this Netflix show was AKA Jessica Jones.
Which is a cute nod at Alias, also known as.
Yes, but they got rid of that.
Yeah, I think that's a mistake, but that's me.
Oh, you would rather be called AKA Jessica Jones?
I like the
different?
tongue-in-cheek nature of that. I get that Jessica Jones is a better SEO choice, a better branding choice.
I kind of agree with you because I think AKA Jessica Jones makes it sound different because there are so many other series out there like Bosch.
Right.
Or Barney Miller.
But she's not Daredevil. Daredevil is a title. It's going to be like the Luke Cage series.
I so want to be called Power Man.
Yeah, but I get that that's kind of a dated thing.
It is.
It is. But I'm like, man, Daredevil, it's like Spider-Man, whereas Luke Cage and Jessica Jones could be your neighbors.
Man, I'll tell you what, I would triple my Netflix subscription if instead of that series being called Luke Cage, it was called Heroes for Hire.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
And he says Sweet Christmas.
Oh, he'll say Sweet Christmas.
I really hope so, but that's another lesson.
I put money on it right now. And again, at the time of this recording, we have not seen Jessica Jones.
We have not. Or Luke Cage, for that matter.
Or Luke Cage. Yeah. Well, they haven't filmed Luke Cage, so at the time of this recording. I put money he says Sweet Christmas in Jessica Jones.
Do you think they do a Christmas episode?
No. He'll say it in one episode.
Yeah.
He'll yell Sweet Christmas.
And she'll be like, that's really stupid. Why would you say that?
Exactly. And then she'll punch him in the face and go into a coma.
All right. So moving forward chronologically,
so
although and not in publication history, yes, during her first story arc in the comic book series, Alias, Jessica investigates the murder of a young woman, winds up with a tape that reveals Captain America's civilian identity as Steve Rogers, and faces the decision of whether or not she is going to leak this information to the press following pressure from a wealthy villain, because frankly, she could use the money.
Yeah.
But she's like, I don't know. Like, she likes what Captain America represents, even if she's not into the superhero thing.
Yeah, but he didn't notice that she was gone for 6 months.
Right. So that's the thing. And again, girl could use the money. This lays the groundwork for her eventual relationship with Luke Cage and her friendship with Carol Danvers, because they're the two people that she reveals this to.
Okay.
Luke Cage is he owns a bar. He works at this bar that she drinks. Jessica Jones drinks a lot, which is something that one of the trailers that came out about Jessica Jones really harps on. And where she drinks is where at least Luke Cage is there.
Does she feel it? Like, because she's very powerful.
You know, they never state that. You know, like Superman, I know can't get drunk, and like the Flashes can't get drunk.
Yeah, and neither can Captain America. Yes,
and they don't speak about. She doesn't have a healing factor.
Okay, she's just really tough.
She's just very strong.
Okay, so then she could probably get drunk.
Based on a scene that I'm not going to quote,
okay,
she can get drunk.
All right, cool.
She goes to Luke Cage's apartment and shouts at him.
Got it.
But I don't know how much it takes. I bet she drinks a lot.
Real quick, we need to explain who Luke Cage is.
Right. You can take the reins on that.
Luke Cage is a 1970s superhero. He used to wear a yellow shirt and a tiara, and he used to be called Power Man, and he used to team up with this guy called Iron Fist and yell "Sweet Christmas," and they'd save crimes for money. But now he's got rid of the tiara. He shaved off his hair. He just wears normal clothes. And he's just badass Luke Cage.
And he was one of Marvel's first, if not the first, African-American hero?
I could not tell you that, to be honest with you.
I don't know, but I know he was one of the first.
He's one of the most prominent.
Certainly, yes.
Actually, to be honest with you, Black Panther.
I don't know. Was Black Panther first, though?
Oh, yeah, way ahead.
Oh, well, I don't know. That's
yeah. Black Panther way ahead. I would say it was, we don't know for certain.
Right, but Luke Cage,
one of the most prominent.
If you can't tell, is going to be an important part of this lesson.
Well, we've seen it. Yeah, he's in the series. He's in Jessica Jones.
Yes. And Carol Danvers is basically her only friend left from when she had interactions with the Avengers.
Oh, Warbird.
Yeah, well, she's Ms. Marvel right now.
Yep.
Matt Murdock moonlights as her lawyer.
Yeah.
She gets in a lot of legal trouble. And Jessica, this is one of the many times when...
Matt Murdock is Daredevil, if you don't know.
Yeah, when that comes up.
If you don't know that, we have a Geek History lesson on Daredevil.
Yes.
On iTunes.
Yes. Jessica knows this. She eventually works as Matt's
She knows that he's Daredevil?
bodyguard. Yes, she does.
Oh, okay.
And she kind of... There's a whole issue where she talks... Because she has a very big crush on Matt Murdock.
Hey, who doesn't?
She talks about the way he acts and the way he walks, that, like, obviously he's Daredevil.
Oh, really? She can tell from the way he walks?
Hey, when you like a dude, you'll watch the way he walks.
Really?
Yeah. I mean that quite honestly.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like, to me, that makes total sense that she could tell by the way he moves that he's Daredevil.
I wonder if...
I don't think Brian Michael Bendis knew that, but I think that's completely believable.
I wonder if Brian got that from his wife or something.
Maybe.
Interesting.
I don't know where he was in his life at that point.
Wow. This Geek History lesson, fellas.
Take notes. Straight fellas.
Well, yeah, straight fellas.
Punch my mic for clarity.
Or straight fellas or ladies of that persuasion.
Yes.
Take note. Ladies are watching the way you... This Geek History lesson got...
Surprise Valentine's Day episode.
we hopped out of the Geek and we went to World.
We went right to Pheromones.
Nice. Okay.
And then she also, during this first arc, she meets up with J. Jonah Jameson and he sends her out to investigate Spider-Man.
You're investigating Spider-Man, Jessica Jones.
Because he wants someone to figure out who Spider-Man is, because he hates Spider-Man. He's like, Jessica's a great PI, so I will team her up with Ben Urich. Ben will write the articles on what she finds out about Spider-Man. Jessica strings him along for some money.
So this starts a relationship between her and Ben Urich. Ben Urich, the very famous Daredevil character that's a reporter who also knows who that Matt Murdock is Daredevil.
Yes, he does. Mm-hmm. We also learned during the Alias series that Jessica has a tendency to drink a lot, like I said. And Jessica. Additionally, she tends to sleep around.
Uh-oh.
Which they kind of hint might be a product of the fact that she was a victim of a form of sexual assault, if not directly.
Okay,
they never really come out and say that, but it's a thing. Like, she sleeps around.
Okay.
But it does leave it to the reader on whether you think that's a good or a bad life choice.
Okay.
And there's an interesting parallel during this time because, like I said, Jessica drinks a lot. Carol Danvers is her best friend. Carol Danvers, recovering alcoholic. Possibly one of the reasons why Carol's the only person who puts up with her.
Interesting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Carol also goes out of her way to set Jessica up with Scott Lang.
Hey, we know who Scott Lang is.
Scott Lang is the second Ant-Man.
He's the second Ant-Man.
I also, I hope that Paul Rudd has a cameo.
Oh, I
in
doubt
Jessica.
it.
But it would be,
doubt it.
even if he just walked through it, like, it would be such a nice nod back to Alias.
Okay.
If he just showed up, or if like Michael Pena needs work. Like, if he just was like, girl, let me tell you about my best friend.
He's this guy. You'd like him.
He shrinks, and she's like, get out. But like, that would be so.
You buying booze? No, get out.
Yeah. You didn't buy me a shot? I hate you.
Yeah.
So they date during part of this series, which I think is really funny that up to a certain point of the series, like the three men who Jessica, four if you want to count Matt, the four men who Jessica is stated as being most attracted to are all white guys, and we know that she winds up with Luke Cage.
Oh, Luke Cage is not one of the dudes that you would consider in that four?
Well, by this point in the series, like, we're at about issue 10 right now.
So it's Matt Murdock, Scott Lang. I'm sorry.
Matt Murdock, Scott Lang, Johnny Storm, Peter Parker.
Oh, okay. I forgot about the high school
That's
crushes.
okay. So by this point, we know that she likes all these characters.
Yep.
We know that she hangs out with Luke Cage, but there's no love. There's no, like, meaningful relationship there.
Got it.
Although there are, like, sexy encounters, but they're not nice, you know? They're not nice.
They're not nice sexy encounters.
Luke's a jerk to her at the beginning.
Oh, come on, Luke.
Yeah.
By the way, for all the students asking, we will probably definitely do a Luke Cage episode
closer to the release of his Netflix
when his Netflix series comes out. Yeah.
Jessica Jones eventually in the latter, there's 28 issues of Alias. In the last 10.
You almost said episodes.
I almost said episodes. I almost said what you do. She does team up with Jessica Drew.
Hey, cool.
And here's the funny thing about, like, Jessica Drew Spider-Woman.
You know, she has good hair.
She's got great hair.
Okay.
She's also a PI.
What?
Yeah, she's also at this time is when she's doing her private investigator thing.
Man, he went meta in this series. Okay.
Yeah. So, like, Jessica Drew shows up and punches Jessica Jones in the face, and then they decide to work together to save.
Whoa! Ladies, you're both named Jessica.
You both have great hair.
You have a common ground.
Yeah. But they eventually team up to try and save a character named Maddie Franklin. Do you know who Maddie Franklin is?
Oh man, I'm losing my nerd cred because
I didn't know who she was until I read this.
I know that name.
Right. So Maddie Franklin is the third Spider-Woman.
Ah, damn it!
And she's adopted by J. Jonah Jameson.
Yeah. I knew that name was familiar to me. I couldn't.
She's I would say a tertiary Spider character.
Yes.
I don't even know if she was involved in Spider-Verse. Like, she's
I don't think so.
Just of such a limited, but she's an important vessel during this story arc because she brings the Brian Michael Bendis Alias series full circle by teaming up Jessica Jones and Jessica Drew. And it's weird because they're like Jessica.
There's so many Jessicas.
Yeah. It's cute that they get to team up. They have some really great dialogue together.
Cool.
And then the infamous Purple Man storyline that I've already told you all about takes place in the last 4 issues of Alias.
Well, because we learn in those issues
that all this happened in the past. Before Alias started chronologically.
Yes, and even though we're in an alleyway right now for the Geek History lesson in the Mayan University alley, we still like to do things chronologically.
We do, because then it's easier to learn how this character blooms and grows forever.
That's history. History's chronologically, baby.
And I just think that's really interesting, because like I said, I read all 28 issues of Alias, and when I think of Alias and I think about the things that people talk about over like 2 days.
Oh, okay.
So
I was waiting for you to say like,
mostly.
I looked down at my iPad and I didn't look up until I was done.
I literally spent a 5-hour stretch reading Alias.
Wow.
That's what I do for the Mind University.
Okay.
I'm that dedicated.
Research.
Yep. So the Purple Man arc is the thing that, in my opinion, really defines Alias and really defines Jessica Jones as a character, tragic or heroic, however you want to look at that. And it is literally issues 24 to 28. So I was like reading it and I was like, well, this is great, but like, when is Purple Man coming? And then in issue 24, I was like, God, like about time, man, about time. And I lost my spot. I have so many notes.
Well, the Purple Man, like again, we did our episode last week. you've given us more details about Purple Man. So it makes sense that you would save this important man of her life. I hate saying that, like, because he was terrible to her.
But he is in the sense of her as a character, like, he's important, not like he meant the world to her.
Yeah, exactly.
And so even though there's a ton of flashback, there is present day drama that happens with him, and that's kicked off because Jessica is contacted by a representative of a group of like 30 men and women, mostly women, who want to investigate the Purple Man, take him down, and have him admit that he killed their loved ones because he's never come out and admitted that.
Okay.
And basically, they come to her because the Avengers are like, we're too busy for that. You called our hotline. Stop calling our hotline.
Wow.
So Jessica agrees to take the case, even though it makes her physically ill in a very gross scene.
Okay.
And she literally, like, that night can't handle the pressure. So she gets drunk, breaks into Luke Cage's house, and proceeds to, it's really funny actually.
Okay.
And then proceeds to like scream at him about how he's not the man that Matt Murdock was and he'll never be as good as Matt Murdock. So Luke Cage like puts her to bed, and then the next morning she wakes up and she's like, oh my God, like, what happened?
I really hope that scene's in the Netflix show.
It was just like, I know it's tragic, but there's something like so funny about this tiny woman like doing this to this gigantic man.
You'll never be as good as this pale white Irish lawyer.
Yeah.
Who's also blind.
So the next morning, Luke sits her down and he's like, hey, what's going on?
Oh, I was waiting for you to say Luke being like, yo, get out.
No, because Luke Cage has basically treated her like scum this whole time, and he is very soft with her, and she tells him everything that the Purple Man did to her. Mm-hmm. And she tells him that he's the first person that he ever told. She's ever told, my mistake, about all of this. And he's basically like, wow, I see you in this whole new way now, and I'm gonna help you. You know, like
a lot of things
I care a lot.
Starting to make sense.
Yeah. So the Purple Man breaks out of the raft, like Jason said. He does that a lot.
I said that last week. Yep.
Yes.
In and out of the raft, the Purple Man. In and out of the raft.
In and out.
And the raft is the Marvel Universe super villain. It's a villain prison. I can't talk.
Yeah, it's associated with Rikers. He comes after her. He makes her see her worst nightmare, which is like Carol Danvers in bed with Luke Cage and Scott Lang. And it turns out that while Jessica was recovering with the help of Jean Grey, they set up psychic barriers in her mind. So the Purple Man can't do anything to her. She defeats him.
Oh, Jean Grey actually did something good.
She does.
Okay, cool.
She doesn't reappear, but it's all Jessica, it's very nice that even though she winds up breaking up with Scott Lang, she everything kind of works out okay. In the final issue in Alias 28, she reveals that she's pregnant and that she has been pregnant for some time.
Oh.
When you're reading these 28 issues, and if you're a lady, because I can't speak to not being a lady.
Okay.
You can definitely tell by issue 10 that she's pregnant.
Really? Why?
Because she's physically ill all the time, whether she's sober or she's drinking.
Okay.
Every time she gets thrown into something, she touches her stomach. And there is a scene where she lifts up her shirt and touches her belly.
Oh, so Michael Gaydos did some really smart, or either Brian Michael Bendis scripts.
Yeah, like I don't know what the scripts looked like.
Yeah,
but
he might have been like, make sure she's touching her stomach.
It's there a lot, and if you knew anything about the way pregnancy is,
yes,
I knew by the time she revealed it.
Interesting. I did not know when I read Alias.
Yeah,
interesting.
And she tells Scott Lang like, I'm pregnant. It's not yours. She goes to Luke Cage and she's like, I'm pregnant and it's yours. And he's like, well, are you gonna keep it? And she's like, yeah, I am. And he's like, I like that idea. Let's try to start a new chapter together.
Oh.
And Alias is a tough read, but it's a really like sweet, honest ending.
I just want to crank up the Barry White right now.
I know. Oh my God, no.
You're like, oh baby.
But if you want to do something sweet and honest for the podcast, there's somewhere that you can go and do that.
Well, it's more like doing something sweet and honest for yourself, because if you know,
even better.
We have a Patreon for this podcast and for all the stuff we do on the Jawiin YouTube channel. Patreon.com/Jawiin, Jawiin. And over there right now, we're doing a thing called the Christmas, Xmas / holiday / whatever you want to call it,
Festivus crate.
And that is for $15 a month. If you're one of our $15 patrons, we are going to give you basically a crate, a box full of a trade paperback, 2 comic books, a toy, and 3 ounces of the Geek History Lesson tee, plus a BB-8 print that looks cute as a button.
Everyone's favorite Star Wars character.
Because BB-8's so cute. So we're going to give you that for $15 a month. And you may be saying right now, well, wait a minute, I can't afford $15 a month. Well, the reason why we're asking to do this right now is because we're thinking about spinning off into some other podcasts, creating some other videos.
That's true. We're doing that.
Yes, and we're looking for a little bit more support before the beginning of the year. So here's what you do. You want this box? You don't want to give us $15 a month?
Yes,
This is what you do. You just give us $15 a month in November, and then December, you can change your pledge. You know what? Patreon lets you do that. So go on over to patreon.com/Jawiin. Get that Christmas crate /Xmas crate /holiday crate if you want it. And if you don't, there's plenty of other perks. There's a $1 perk. There's a $3 perk where you get Geek History Lesson episodes early. There's a $5 perk where you get Geek History Lesson Extra, where we talk about 20 more minutes on the topic of the episode. It's a Geek History Lesson exclusive podcast to Patreon. All of that money helps support this show and keep this show going and allows Ashley to read all of Alias so that she can explain Jessica Jones' comas to you.
I also read all of The Pulse, which we'll get to really quickly.
And all of The Pulse. That's what it is. Patreon.com/Jawiin. Help support Geek History Lesson. Go get yourself a little something nice.
Go get yourself something sweet and honest.
Sweet Christmas.
Yes.
Have a sweet Christmas.
Oh, nice.
On us.
So I spent a lot of time talking about Alias. It's because that is definitely Jessica's defining series. If you want a spoiler for a recommended reading,
and it's what we assume the new series is. Mainly
from
based
all
on.
The adverts, like it's gonna be Alias
Basically.
in some way, shape, or form.
An adaptation, because obviously they probably won't have Scott Lang in there. I know you want Scott Lang in there.
I really want Scott. He won't play as prominent a role if he does show up. Certainly.
I don't think he's gonna show up.
Shut up.
It'd be really cool, but I don't think so.
So really quickly now we're going to talk about all the rest of the stuff because going forward, Jessica kind of just appears where Luke Cage appears.
Okay.
So she goes on to a follow-up story to Alias, which is called The Pulse that I spoke about mere seconds ago, written by Brian Michael Bendis with art by alternately Mark Bagley, Brent Anderson, Michael Lark, and Michael Gaydos. The Pulse is basically Alias light. It is Alias involved in the larger Marvel universe, a lot less edgy, a lot less swearing, a lot less violent.
We should also state something that I think you forgot to bring up was Alias was a mature reader's comic book.
It was a Max comic book.
Yeah, Marvel Max was their Marvel's uncensored, anything goes.
It's something like Marvel Adult.
It was kind of Marvel's Vertigo.
Yeah, yes, very much.
But it was very much about like uncensored. And The Pulse was in the normal Marvel universe, a superhero line. So stuff became very PG-13 very quickly.
Yes. I like Alias. I actually like The Pulse better than Alias.
You know, here's a weird thing. I do too.
And I don't mean it as a criticism at all, but it's just like, if I had to read them again.
There's something about The Pulse that I like a little bit more. I know, and every Jessica Jones fan out there that's listening to us are just screaming at us, especially Brian Michael Bendis.
I'm sorry. He got paid to write both. It's fine.
I like The Pulse better too.
Yes. The Pulse focuses on a group of characters that write for the Pulse section of the Daily Bugle, which is basically their like superhero rag. Ben Urich is a big part of the series. He helms it as the lead
reporter,
the lead journalist, the most senior journalist. Jessica comes on because she obviously was a superhero and she has an in and she's a great investigator. The Purple Man shows up really, really briefly just to be like, hey, I'm the ultimate Jessica Jones villain, and then like goes away and never comes back.
I still think you think you're in a comic book.
Yes. The first arc of The Pulse is called Thin Air, and it deals with the revelation of the Green Goblin's secret identity, Norman Osborn. And
spoilers.
Spoilers. And basically during this arc, a whole bunch of people learn that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, including Jessica, which is obviously very meaningful to her because she respects Spider-Man and she had loved Peter Parker at one time.
You know, this story arc, by the way, is very, very significant to Spider-Man history. You know why?
Please.
It is the first time Norman Osborn is locked up in jail for being the Green Goblin.
That is very true. But this isn't a Spider-Man lesson.
Oh, that's true. I'll shut up. No more talking about Spider-Man.
Basically, the way The Pulse ends is that at the beginning, Jessica tells Jonah that she's pregnant. So she's like, I need a steady paycheck and I need healthcare. And he's like, great, I'll give you all of that as long as I get the first rights to pictures of your baby with you and Luke Cage. And then in the end, she's like, I don't want to do that. So she has a baby. Whose name is Danielle.
Oh, Danielle.
Luke Cage becomes a new Avenger.
Yep.
And Luke Cage and Jessica decide that they are going to get married. She leaves the Bugle because of their argument and because J. Jonah Jameson publishes a very slanderous article about the Avengers and about superheroes. And even though dear God, she's not a superhero, she really can't abide bad press for superheroes because she knows they're good people.
And they move into Avengers Mansion, right?
They do in the next arc.
Oh, my bad.
But I think they say maybe they move or they say they're going to move in the last issue, but it's a bigger part of stories coming up. The Pulse also crosses over with a lot of the events that were running at this time. House of M, and Secret War, but they're just like tie-in issues that don't further the plot and frankly aren't very interesting.
Yes.
Yeah, they're just like her like, oh no, I'm in an alternate reality kind of.
No, I'm named Jessica Smith.
Jessica Campbell Parker. Who knows? The next time Jessica appears following the Pulse is in the Young Avengers series.
Because the Pulse ends.
The Pulse ends by Alan Heinberg and Jim Chung. If you are listening to this podcast, you know that we love the Young Avengers. She shows up alongside Luke Cage and the rest of the Avengers because they're living at Avengers Mansion to help the Young Avengers fight Doctor Doom. And in the very final panel, she can be seen hugging Hulkling because he needs some emotional support.
Okay.
Which is also funny because she's probably as strong as him and he's this giant pseudo-Skrull guy.
Yep.
It's a very beautiful panel because Jim Chung draws beautiful art. Later in 2007 and started in 2006, 2007, Civil War happens.
Civil War.
3 sentences or less. What's Civil War?
Cap says... Wait, I must mulligan that.
Okay.
Mulligan that. Okay. The government says superheroes better get licenses. Iron Man says, yay! Captain America says, no.
That's pretty much it.
That's Civil War. In 3 sentences.
Written by Mark Miller and Steve McNiven.
Yep.
Jessica and Luke Cage are confronted by Tony Stark and Carol Danvers, who are on the pro-registration side.
Yep.
And they are pressured into joining that side. Jessica eventually flees to Canada with baby Danielle in order to keep her safe, because nowhere is safer than my homeland.
And Luke joins the anti-registration side.
He does.
Yep.
But they don't want to involve, because babies.
And it creates the big rift because going forward, basically, Luke is sort of a fugitive with his fugitive Avengers team.
He is, yes, and we're going to talk about that.
Sorry to kind of steal your thunder.
Please. By the end of Civil War, Luke is the leader of the New Avengers.
Yep.
And
a great arc written by, still written by Brian Michael Bendis, but drawn by Len Francis Yu.
Yes.
It looks great.
So good.
Yep.
And post-Civil War, Jessica Jones returns to the United States, moves into the Sanctum Sanctorum.
Yeah, because that's where the New Avengers move into.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the Sanctum Sanctorum, Doctor Strange's
house.
Yes. And she becomes a member of the New Avengers as well. And there are implications during that time that Danielle might be a Skrull baby.
Yeah.
You see her eyes flash, but they never confirm nor deny it.
There's a lead up to Secret Invasion, which we'd already said was where the Skrulls are like kind of secretly, and you find out that Jessica Drew is a Skrull. And they do this panel in New Avengers.
I think it's a whole splash.
I remember it as being like the camera going closer to the baby.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Until it ends on the baby's eye, and the baby's eye was green.
It was a Skrull. It was a Skrull eye.
Yeah. Well, no, it wasn't a Skrull eye. It just her pupil was green.
Right.
And so, I guess the idea is the implication is that she is a Skrull, but you actually find out that Jarvis is a Skrull.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, it's weird. Like they heavily implicate it.
We're going to talk about Jarvis in just a second.
Okay, so I don't know whether Mr. Bendis thought oh, I'm going to do this, and then they were like, no, let's not do this.
Don't do that. Yeah. But it happens and it's weird and it's never paid off. Jessica eventually flees the Sanctum Sanctorum to Stark Tower with Danielle in order to keep her safe from the invading Skrulls.
Yes, she makes a deal with Tony.
Yes. This act of defiance effectively ends her relationship with Luke Cage for a second because it's comics.
Yeah.
Because she basically failed to consult him about the safety of their daughter.
He's mad. He's really mad about it.
And Luke Cage is many things. Luke Cage is a great father. And he deserved to be consulted.
Yes.
So it's not like he was, like a piece of scum and, I think he's very justified in being mad at her. During Secret Invasion, a Skrull disguised as Jewel, Jessica's superhero pink-haired persona, arrives, stirs up a lot of drama for Jessica about whether or not she's the real Jessica or not. She is. And a Skrull disguised as Jarvis kidnaps Danielle and leaves Jessica desperate to find her.
Yep.
Moving into the Dark Reign storyline of the Fantastic Four.
Well, let's explain what Dark Reign is. Dark Reign is where the end of Secret Invasion is Norman Osborn basically kills the Skrull Queen, and because of that, the government's like, hey, you did this thing, let's reward you with your own organization just like S.H.I.E.L.D. and call it Hammer.
Yeah.
And Norman Osborn basically makes all heroes villains. Basically, because he starts hunting down the normal heroes, and that's why it's the Dark Reign, because the bad guys are in control.
Yes. So during that time, the Fantastic Four, the New Avengers, Bucky, and Iron Fist all team up with Jessica and Luke in order to search for Danielle for wherever Jarvis put her. Luke eventually teams up with Norman Osborn, saves Danielle, and returns her to live with Jessica full time because they are separated at this point. Although this act begins a reconciliation and a new relationship between them and keeps Jessica and Luke from getting divorced. And they decide that they need a superpowered nanny because they don't know if their baby has superpowers. And Doreen Green, a.k.a. Squirrel Girl, becomes their nanny.
Yep.
Following a bunch of attacks on Avengers Mansion, including the final one led by Norman Osborn, Jessica quits the New Avengers in order to protect Danielle from falling into harm's way. Jessica, Luke, and Danielle move into an apartment in the Gem Theater, which is the Mighty Avengers base of operations because they become Mighty Avengers. Mm-hmm. And Jessica moonlights as an auxiliary member of the team. The last time we really saw Jessica is during Superior Spider-Man because he's trying to put a team of Avengers together and he threatens the baby's safety in order to get Jessica on his team, so she punches him in the face.
Yay.
And that was her. That is the lengthy lesson on Jessica Jones.
Wow, that was pretty. Yeah, that was very lengthy. It was really good.
I just think there's a lot of really important stuff in Alias that we needed to talk about.
You peel back the mystery of this detective.
Yeah, so let's talk really quickly about recommended reading.
I mean, there's two series.
Alias and the Pulse. New Avengers is also great.
Hey, if you want to check out Brian Michael Bendis' New Avengers run, Jessica will show up every once in a while.
Yeah.
But it's not really her book.
So basically, if Brian Michael Bendis wrote it, it's some good Jessica Jones.
There you go.
Why don't we move into discussion?
Yes. Well, Ashley, you have talked at length
much
on Jessica Jones. So I thought you seem like a Jessica Jones expert right now.
I would consider myself one now, yes.
Yes. So I actually got to talk to another Jessica Jones expert.
What?
Yes. Rob Jefferson. He is the host, the creator of Comics Explained on YouTube and also on Twitter. And he considers himself a Jessica Jones expert. So I thought, let's bring him on the podcast and let's have an amazing Jessica Jones discussion with him.
All right.
So, Rob, how much of an expert would you consider yourself on Jessica Jones?
I consider myself pretty knowledgeable in terms of Jessica Jones.
Do you love Jessica Jones?
Jessica Jones is bae.
All right, so we have a cinematic universe in Marvel. We have a cinematic universe Avengers team. Mm-hmm. There's rumors we're going to get some others. We might see the Defenders and all that stuff like that. Do you want to see Jessica Jones join the movie Avengers?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Full costume and everything.
Full costume. And here's the reason why. The Avengers in the Marvel Cinematic Universe are cool. You got Thor, you got the Incredible Hulk, but they are larger-than-life characters. Mm-hmm. And it's cool to have a larger-than-life character. But with a character like Jessica Jones, she's street level. Her story is a dark story. She's a very human character in terms of how she's written and especially how we will see her, with regards to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I think that with the Avengers, they need to have some street level, bring it down to earth, more tangible members of that team. And I think that Jessica Jones could do that.
Do you want to see her would you like to see a version of her full costume?
Yeah, I'm really curious to see what they would do with her full costume. I'm not sure if the iconic costume that we saw with Jewel, when she was first starting off as a superhero. I don't know if they would make one up for her. Mm-hmm. I'm not really sure exactly how they would do that, but I would like to see a full costume, not really, street clothes, Jessica Jones on the Avengers.
Interesting. So. Who do you think in the cinematic universe? Now, we haven't seen, at the time of this recording, we haven't seen cinematic Jessica Jones, but who do you think she would have the best relationship with in the movie Avengers?
Well, obviously, and when she first launches, it would be Luke Cage. But assuming that they deviate from source material and they take Luke Cage out of the picture, I don't know. I mean, Tony Stark, of course, would be a great potential person to come in and at the very least, for a fling to exist between the two of them. But I could see her pining after Steve Rogers.
Interesting.
I couldn't see it going anywhere.
Okay, all right.
But I could see her pining after him, or at the very least, he might have an interest in her. But
now, also on the comic side, there is no Jessica Jones comic book series right now. We had Alias, we had The Pulse. Now, Alias, mature readers. The Pulse, PG, superhero friendly.
Definitely.
If they were to launch a new Jessica Jones series, and hopefully they would title it Jessica Jones, do you want it to be a mature series, or do you want it to be a PG connected to the superhero universe?
A mature series.
Yeah.
And the reason why I say that is because Jessica Jones is one of those characters where the best way to do her credit is to give her an adult-oriented title. To say, we're getting rid of the limits, we're getting rid of...
Let her say all those cuss words.
Exactly. Let her cuss. Because that's what made Alias so good. Alias was good because it was designed for adults, or for people, of a mature age. And the content reflected that. They were able to pull off her whole relationship with the Purple Man. They were able to make that dark, or as dark as it was, and as interesting as it was, because they weren't bound by the restriction of creating, content for younger readers. And so I would definitely say that for her character, if they're going to give her a solo series, it needs to be a mature, adult-oriented title.
Nice. Now, crazy question. This might be putting a lot on your plate right now. Is Jessica Jones the greatest female character that's been created for Marvel of the last 15 years?
Ooh.
I don't know. I threw a huge softball at you.
In terms of powers, no. In terms of character, probably.
Okay, who's better in powers, you think? I mean, would you throw it to Miss Marvel? Would you throw it to the repowered Captain Marvel?
I would probably throw it to Carol Danvers.
Yeah.
Carol Danvers, I think, is when people think of female characters in Marvel Comics, they think of She-Hulk, they think of Carol Danvers, and Jessica Jones, in terms of what she can do, is a toned down Carol Danvers. She's a less powerful Carol Danvers. But Carol Danvers, and being able to fly into the depths of space, the incredible strength that she possesses, it's always been a part of her character. It's always been who she is. And so I would say, in terms of powers, definitely Carol Danvers takes the cake.
But in terms of character, you gave it to Jessica.
I gave it to Jessica Jones.
Why?
Because she has the most dynamic and most, I think, in-depth story. The most tragic story, really, of
any female
character in the comics, because you're talking about a woman who was victimized for 8 months, and the whole issue when Alias came to an end was the Avengers said, "Hey, look, we'd love to have you among our ranks," and she told Nick Fury and everybody else, "No, I was gone for 8 months, and none of you knew, and none of you guys cared. Don't want to have anything to do with the superhero team," and she left. And so that story of Alias, reading Amazing Spider-Man number 600, I think it was, where she talked about how she was inspired to become a superhero because she saw Peter Parker, or saw Spider-Man fighting. That, I think, makes her human. And I think the human element of her character, the ability to look at her and say, this is clearly a person that's had a really dark past, is what makes her really interesting to me.
Wow.
Anyway,
Man, you just expanded my brain with some Jessica Jones knowledge here. All right, Rob, thank you so much for joining us here on Geek History Lesson. Please let all the people out there know where they can find you, where they can watch you and absorb more Jessica Jones knowledge.
You can find me on YouTube at Comics Explain, and
YouTube.com/Comics Explain?
YouTube.com/Fluidic Beats.
Okay.
It's a weird name, I know.
But Comics Explain, just put it in the search bar.
Just search Comics Explain and you'll find it.
Yeah, do you have a Twitter handle as well?
Yeah, Comics Explain on Twitter. And if you're interested in seeing weird pics of food, you can find me on Instagram at Comics Explain.
All right, thank you so much for joining us today.
Awesome, thanks a lot, man.
I don't know about you, but Rob brought up some really interesting points, and I thought our discussion went into some really interesting places.
Rob, thanks for taking that one for me.
Yeah, so go check out Rob on Twitter and YouTube, and please subscribe and follow him, and tell him that you loved his discussion on Geek History Lesson.
Absolutely.
So, Ashley, what's next?
Next is the teaching tweet.
Yes, that's the part of our podcast where we like to tell you all about the character that we just told you about in 140 characters or less. So, Ashley, what is your teaching tweet on Jessica Jones?
Jessica Jones, not treated much like a jewel, with a capital J. Not as smart as she thinks. Could probably use a reboot. Balls in your court, Netflix. # Jessica Jones on Netflix.
Was the capital J part of the 140 characters?
Yes, because Jewel the superhero name, so I was trying to make a pun.
Oh, okay, good.
I know it failed because I had to explain it.
Oh, okay. Well, when you whispered, I wasn't sure.
Joke's not funny if you have to explain it,
Yeah,
Harley.
I know.
That's my teaching tweet.
Yay! The teaching tweet on Jessica Jones. Woo!
Yes, which I think brings an end to this time we've spent with our alias.
Sweet Christmas! Well, you know what that means, everybody. That means that we have more Jessica Jones over at our Patreon exclusive podcast, Geek History Lesson. patreon.com/Jawiin. You can go listen to that there. But you can listen to this main episode again and our episode last week on the Purple Man, which I think is, want to learn more about the Purple Man. That's last week's episode. iTunes, Stitcher. Go over there, subscribe, and also leave us a rating and review because it helps other listeners find this podcast just like you.
Yep.
Ashley, where can they find us on social media if they want to beg us to do the Luke Cage episode?
They can find us.
Have they already?
Oh, I think we have 5 or 6 requests for Luke Cage since we started.
Nice.
Yeah. He's well liked. They can find us at geekhistorylesson.com. It is a Tumblr. You can ask questions there. Our likes and asks are always open. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/geekhistorylesson.
Where can they find you on Twitter, Ashley?
You can tweet me pictures of Jessica Jones and Luke Cage at Ashley V. Robinson.
You can find me on Twitter at Jawiin, Jawiin, as well on youtube.com/Jawiin with the same spelling. Next week is Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, America.
Future people. And we will be taking the week off to celebrate with our friends and our families. Also, so we can watch Jessica Jones on Netflix.
That's true.
So if you're listening to this in the future, it doesn't mean much. But if you're listening to this episode when this episode comes out, we're going to binge Jessica Jones. And why are we going to binge Jessica Jones Season 1, Ashley?
Because we're going to review it.
That's right. Our first episode on December 7th, right after Thanksgiving, will be a Season 1 review of Jessica Jones. So if you want to follow along with us, that gives you more than a week to watch 10 episodes of great quality entertainment. Well, we haven't seen it yet, but hopefully it's
based
great.
on Daredevil, great quality entertainment.
Based on Daredevil, great quality entertainment. So that's what you got coming up. So next week, go back and listen to some of our old episodes, or if you want, or just relax. Relax. The Mind University will be closed.
No classes will be in session.
Because we're worried that we're running out of budget because we had this lesson in the alley.
It's not just because we couldn't keep the lights on.
But we'll be back the week after that, December 7th, with a review of Jessica Jones Season 1 because we love doing this stuff and we love you guys supporting us and listening to this podcast. I am Jason Inman.
I am Ashley Victoria Robinson.
And Ashley, as we close out this geek history lesson about Jessica Jones, please dismiss the class or tell them to go home since we're in an alleyway. I don't know. What are you going to do?
Well, class is dismissed before I have to drunkenly throw myself through your apartment window.
Please don't do that.
I make no promises.
Oh, Lord. Sweet Christmas.